The government is a set of rules and regulations set up so a large group of people can function as a society. The United States government is broken into three branches: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. The legislative branch has the power to lay and collect taxes, establish inferior courts, the power of impeachment, and provide for the general welfare and the common defense of the nation. It is comprised of Congress, which is the Senate and the House of Representatives. The number of representatives is determined by state population. No state can have less than one representative, obviously, and only 6 states in the Union have only one representative. California, the most populous state, has 52. The House has shorter term lengths than the Senate and was intended to be more in touch with its constituents' wants and needs. The Senate, on the other hand, has a longer term length, with the idea behind that being that giving senators some space from their constituents would allow them to deliberate on what was actually best instead of just what people wanted at the time. They have 2 representatives per state, making an even 100 senators. Senators used to be appointed by representatives, however. The 17th Amendment overturned this and made Senate positions a populist vote. Generally, these 2 branches do the same thing: make laws. But the Constitution spells out some key differences. As we've seen in the media recently, the House has the power to impeach the President and other federal officials. They also decide the outcome of elections if no candidate wins the Electoral College. This is exceptionally rare. Finally, any bill that raises taxes has to start in the House of Representatives. The Senate, on the other hand, holds the impeachment trial. Again, we've seen this played out in the media recently. They can ratify treaties and they have confirmation power. This means they can confirm people to seats of power in the government. Think Supreme Court judges and cabinet members. However, there are over 1,000 positions in the government that require Senate confirmation. The main reason for having 2 legislative options is to keep the legislative branch from having too much power. James Madison in the Federalist 51 Papers writes, "In Republican government, the legislative authority necessarily predominates. The remedy for this inconvenience is to divide the legislature into different branches and to render them by different modes of election and different principles of action, as little connection with each other as the nature of their common functions and their common dependence on the society will admit. The main separation of these 2 components is based around term length." Creation of laws that RNs must abide by, which include things like A. Staffing ratios, B. Scopes of practice, and C. Licensure exams and certifications. Executive branch is run by the President and the Vice President. The executive branch of the United States is headed by the President, who is the Commander-in-Chief of the military, and he can sign legislation into law or veto bills sent to his desk from Congress. He conducts diplomacy missions in the name of the United States, can issue executive orders that which direct elected officials or clarify and further existing laws, and he has unlimited power to grant pardons in clemency cases, except in the case of impeachment. The Founding Fathers were very suspicious of the tyranny they saw under the English rule, so they created a way to check the powers of the President. Alexander Hamilton explains in Federalist Number 69 that the presidential power can be checked by Congress. For example, the executive branch also represents the strength of the nation in regards to the U.S. military. The President has command of armed forces, however, regulating and financing the Army is exclusively the power of Congress. Also, the President may be able to veto a bill. However, a 2/3 majority of Congress votes, then that veto can be overturned. Enforcement of laws that RNs must abide by include oversight bodies such as Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Education, Department of Labor, Department of Veteran Affairs, if work for VA. The job of the judiciary is to interpret and explain the laws. It is headed by the Supreme Court. The court has jurisdiction over all federal laws passed by U.S. Congress, treaties made by the executive branch, all trials involving public ministers, Maritime jurisdiction, all trials where the U.S. is a party and controversies involving 2 or more states. They are the weakest of the 3 branches with few enumerated powers. This was done on purpose because the branch is composed of people that are the farthest away from the populace. Alexander Hamilton in Federalist number 78 says, "The judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over either the sword or the purse, no direction either of the strength or the wealth of the society, and can take no active resolution whatsoever. It may truly be said to have neither force nor will, really judgment. It must ultimately depend upon the aid of the executive arm even for the efficacy of his judgment. Anything that happens in courts related to nursing is some sort of extension of the judicial branch, be it the case of Roe v. Wade to criminal charges placed against negligent nurses."